Okay, it's now 5 o'clock. We'll start the webinar. Hi everyone, thanks for joining with us on today's webinar. Today's sessions, we have the pleasure of having Alee Cochrane as our presenter, who will share with us the tips of best practices for a growing practice and how to utilize them in GovReports Office Practice Manager. Before I hand over the control to Alee, a little bit of housekeeping so that we know that the technology is working for everyone here and start the webinar. Can you please raise your hands if you can hear me? Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Alee. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Sue Ellen. Okay, good. So it sounds like everyone can hear me. Well, the sessions is recorded and will be posted on our GovReports website, the GovReports webinar website. After the session, so if you missed a little bit here and there, you can always revisit the session at your convenience. During the session, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to send through your questions so we came back to it during the questions time. Okay, over to you, Alee.
Thanks, Tiana. Well, hello everyone and welcome to Best Practices for a Growing Practice. So in this webinar today, the aim is to look at ways to delegate jobs, tasks, or reorganise your practice, how to optimise your workflow, how you can communicate essential changes to your practice and clients, and how you can let clients know about changes and regulations that may impact on them. And then we'll have a quick look at setting up your GovReports Office Practice Manager. Now, there's quite a few slides. I have sent through something to Tiana. Whether she sends it out to attendees afterwards, I'll let her deal with that. So don't panic if I move away from the presentation and move into the GovReports, because I think it's important to also show you how it happens in the practice. And the screenshots in the presentation are just that, screenshots. So one of the things about getting yourself set up for success is getting yourself organised and taking advantage of those tools at your fingertips that help you automate and make things more efficient in your use of time. By utilising your practice management system, that's going to allow you to function as efficiently as you can, but it will also help you as your practice grows. So now we're going to take a little bit of a look at GovReports and how we can set it up for our success. So I'm just going to quickly change over to GovReports, and I'm in my GovReports screen. As you can see here, it's laid out very nicely with a bird's eye view. We have this little widget here that can customize exactly what you see on this dashboard. You can see this broken down into the My Clients, Authorised Users, Lodgements, etc. And you can see the other bits and pieces that we'll talk a little bit more in a little bit more detail a little bit later on. So as I said, we can customise the widgets here. And we also have the settings area here where we can go through and customise some of the settings for GovReports and using it. So just to go back very quickly, you can see here, as I illustrated, the little widgets here and the customised setting there. Now the screen that you're seeing in this dashboard is just a very quick snapshot of where things are in your business, so it helps you stay organised. So you can see here what reports are outstanding, how many reports have been saved, how many you've lodged, what are processing, what you've done in the past, etc. And you'll have your own sort of license and picture up there of you. So the first step is to get organised. So how are we going to maximise that automation and efficiencies within GovReports? Because if you can set it up from the onset, then it helps you get the processes right, and that can be adapted as you grow. One of the things I want to show you is the proposals. So one of the things about our practice is organising ourselves to send out proposals, to send out engagement letters, and we can do that by utilising the templates and letters in GovReports. I'm going to flick back into GovReports to show you. As I said, the slides are just a quick snapshot of everything that's there. And so in here, we have the ability to go into the My Practice and our templates and letters. And in here, we can add a letter. You'll find that there are a number of templates that have already been set up that you can utilise, or you can add your own template. Now, we cover that more in another webinar about the letters and the templates, but just to let you know, if I wanted to go and add a proposal, I could just simply click on the Start button here, put in some dates, and go through and follow with the different placeholders that I want, customise my letter, and take it through to actually select the client that I want or add a new client in to be able to actually set up that proposal. I would then go through and I could, let me just see if I've got a client I could select here. So if I chose this one, I would go through, I could add the services that I want, and I have once again these preset templates of services which I can customise, and I could select as little or as much as I want. So I might say I want to do all of these things for this proposal. Let's select those. Let's save that. I could then preview my save my document and preview it and have a look at what it looks like. And I don't want to get too hung up on it here, sitting here. Something's gone with my internet, is a bit slow. There we go. And so you can see here, there's the proposal with a little bit of information. Obviously, I haven't filled in all the bits and pieces that would normally be filled in. So there's a few fields there that you can see are not as I'd want them to be. But you can see primarily what it would look like. Any questions about that before I move on to the next sort of section? I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint presentation and just talk about how we've added those sort of things we've talked about, adding the proposal, selecting the client, going through, and we will find if we're adding a new client, we can set them up as an active client or as a lead. We have our start dates, the services, we can view our proposal, and you'll see that in our client list, you'll see the different colours will signify which ones are leads, which ones are active, etc. Now, if we want to customise our practice settings, that's a good place to start. So let's look at customising our practice settings so that we can set up those services to optimise what we're going to do and make it more efficient. We don't have to create it on the fly. So back again, I'm going to go into our Gov Reports, and I'm going to go into my settings at the top of the screen, and I'm going to go into my practice settings. So one of the things we'd look at is we'd go through here and set up our settings. One of the things we can look at is our client services. So this might be something you might sit down and organise at the beginning. What sort of services do you want to offer for your clients? Do you want to edit that? You can edit it. You can add sections, and you can add different titles. You can remove things that you don't want. So you can see you have quite a bit of flexibility in here to be able to add these different services in and customise these so that you have a full range of services there that you can use for your proposals and for your engagement letters. You'll also see there are things like calendar integrations and billing settings, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. So at this stage, we're looking at trying to set out the way that we want things to function within our practice. So sitting down and mapping out and planning what you'd like to offer as services, thinking about all of those things. It doesn't mean that you have to do everything from the start, but getting as much of it done as you can at the beginning is going to save you a lot of time in the long run. Now, the other thing we can do is we can also look at setting up our engagement letters. So we have, of course, our templates and letters, as I mentioned before, and you can see here that we have engagement letters. And in here, we can go through and start an engagement letter usually using the template that's already there. Or as we did before, we could go to our templates and letters, and we could actually even create our own template from scratch. Now, when you select your engagement letter, you're going to have something very similar. So when you have chosen your engagement letter, say we choose this one, it's exactly very, very similar to what you see in the proposal. In here, you can see that it's engagement, and you'll choose your start, your finish date, and the period ending. You can see down here the placeholders, as you would in any mail merge document in Word or in any other sort of merging document. And down the bottom you have the options to eventually, once you're finished with it and completed what you need, you've added the services that you want, you can email it to the client and send it for signature. Now, once that's done, you'll find that it will be saved in your saved documents area. So let's just quickly flick back to our PowerPoint. So once again, you can see here in our practice settings where I talked about adding in our service lists, going through and adding in the services. And there's also a little link there to take you through on how to do these sorts of things and your engagement letters. Once again, selecting your services, and the template we use is the engagement letter template. And the engagement letter, of course, is a very important part of our process. It's something that we need to do as BAS agents or tax agents or accountants. We need to send that engagement letter where we set the scope of what it is that we're doing for the clients, what is expected of us, and what they are, what we are expecting of them to provide, and it sets that foundation. So it's one of those practices that you like to have in place because it sets the scope so that everybody knows where you're coming from. All right, so we'll go through normally and we would customise our Gov Reports package to make sure that it is customised to the settings that we want. We will then look at some of the other functionality that is in Gov Reports that we can utilise to communicate with our clients. So one of the things that we can do is that we can communicate changes to the practice and clients utilising the letters and templates area in Gov Reports. Now this makes it very, very simple to be able to set up a letter template to add to your client, which you can then email out. So I don't know if any of you are members of the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers, but you might know that they do send out a document which you can like white paper it. It's for your client newsletter, which you can send out to your clients. Now, you could go through and you could create that document and you could email it individually to each client, or you could take that document, you could put it into Gov Reports, you can attach it to the client and have a record of it going out to the client there. You can also utilise the digital authentication area in Gov Reports to send documents outside of your normal BAS agent requirements. So this might be another area, once again, I know that I utilised this in terms of the JobKeeper. So when JobKeeper came along, I notified my clients about JobKeeper. I told them what needed, what the eligibility criteria was. And then for each individual client, I created this template document that I could send to them and attached it to that. And I also had the workings in my little introduction to them about whether they may be eligible or not. So this saves a significant amount of time rather than if you were having to send, say, a document that you needed a signature for, and you'd have to go through and create that document and create the signature fields, and you might have to have other fields in it. You can create that very easily and simply within GovReports. So let's take a look at how we can do that. I'm going to go back to GovReports. Hopefully I'm not going too fast for you guys. Please let me know if I am. So just as we have before, we have the ability within the My Practice area here of going into the templates and letters and adding in a letter. So in here I can add a new template, and I could call this monthly newsletter. Now at the moment it only gives you three options here to choose from. It's really not a proposal, nor is it really an engagement or ethical, but I would put it under engagement just for the sake of saying that it is a client engagement. So you are engaging the client in communication. So down here I could type in something that I want to say to them. So I'll just put that in there and I can save that. So I've now successfully saved my template. What am I going to do with it now? I've got all this information in there that I wanted to have. So what I would do now is I can now go back to my screen here, and I can go to my client, and I'll choose my client here. And in here I'm going to go to letters, and I'm going to add my letter, and I'm going to select my monthly newsletter. I'm just putting it in, I'm going to put in a date, and I will have filled in some other information in here. And I'm going to save it. Oops, if I put in the right date. And then I would email off that newsletter to my client through here. And when I do that, my newsletter would be received with the information attached in there for them to view. Very simple way to keep track of things that way. And so in here, you can see now that there's the monthly newsletter, and you can see now that it's been sent or whatever I wanted to do with it. And I can go back to my client, have a look in here, and I can keep a track and see when things have actually been sent to them. You also have the option here to don't ever forget that there's also the file notes. It's a very useful area that you would use in your practice, making note of things that may have occurred or you want to track with the client that doesn't necessarily fit into one of these other little pigeonholes. You might want to put a note in there. So you can see in here how you can very simply communicate some changes by creating a letter template to send off to the client via the letters area. Now the other way you can utilise it is by using the digital authentication area, which is this very colourful and bright coloured area at the top here. And if I click on that, unfortunately this little thing in the program at the moment won't disappear. I'm going to click on digital authentication. So whilst that's coming up, I'm just going to very quickly click back to the PowerPoint presentation and just take you through again to say that this is what we've done. We went through and we had a look at going to our letters and templates. We went through and we added a template. We then could go through via the My Clients area is the other way we can do it. We're going to add that template letter now to the client and we'd go through and send it. Now the main difference between sending it via digital authentication and the letters and templates is that if you're using the digital authentication, you need to already have the document completed in order to attach it and send it. That's the major difference between the two. So let's have a look at how we use the digital authentication. So I'm just going to allow this. So when I clicked in there, it's come up to this screen here. And you can see that the little digital authentication symbols are here. And you'll also see that the digital authentication actually opened up in a brand new tab. So I'm just looking at a question that popped up and I'll answer that one in a moment. So in here, if I go that I want, first of all, I would go in and set up my signature, etc. The My Documents area keeps track of the documents that have been sent. The My Contacts will have names. If I go New, it comes up here to give me an option to either send a document or sign a document. And so if I was going to send a newsletter, I might be more inclined to send it this way because I then don't necessarily need to worry about the covering letter showing that it's an engagement or a proposal because that's the options it's got at the moment. But this way I can send the document and just attach something. So if I'm doing a newsletter, I'll have my PDF of my newsletter and I'll go New, Send a Document. And up here I would upload a file. It would be a PDF file. So I would choose the file. So if I just go to Dropbox and I choose my Gov Reports for a moment, and I just choose this one, it would upload the file. Down the bottom here, my existing clients, if I start typing their name in, it should start to pick up their email address. Now, I don't need this person to be a signee. I just need them to view this document. So I have that option when I'm sending a document. And down here, I don't have any templates at the moment, but so in here I could say monthly newsletter. I wouldn't be as blunt as that, but and have a little bit of a spiel. I can put in some placeholders. So in here I can go Dear and then name. This is your monthly newsletter. And then kind regards. If you have any further questions, blah, blah, blah. And then I can actually create this as a saved message so I don't have to keep retyping it. Just excuse me for a minute while I pause. I just got coughed for a second. So down here I can actually save this message. And then I'm going to preview it. And you can see this is what's going to come through, blah, blah, blah. Except that won't come through. If I'm happy with that, I can go to my next screen. Now normally it will have at least one should be as a signee. I might just put that in there for them to sign. I could have my own address in there as a signature one and have the actual client that I'm sending it to as a viewer, and that way I get round the minimum having to have one person to sign. So if I change this just for the moment, just to signee, just so I can get past the next screen, I go to next. And when the screen comes up, it should show this PowerPoint. Now that might take a little bit of time to do that.
That's okay.
Okay, so how many saved messages is a question down the bottom can you have? I'm not 100% sure of that, Tiana Sandeep.
I answer that. For most accounts, it's for Bass Agent's account, I think there's 5 saved messages that you can have. For tax agents, I think there's more than that. Is it 8? Also 5. So at the moment, there is a restriction as to how many saved messages that you can have. The thing is that we find that commonly commonly there are about 4 or 5 templates that you can use, but if it's a newsletter, maybe you draft one and you create one and then use it for that month, and then I don't know how many other forms that you normally lodge or you send out on a regular basis, but currently there's 5.
Okay.
We'll consider having additionals if they're if there's sort of popular requests. In relations to the other thing too, Alee, I've noticed that you send it to yourself, the same email address that you register as your username. So what happened is that the system will recognize that it is you are yourself sending it to yourself, and it will ask you to place your signature on it. But if you have other recipient with other email address into this email, then that's fine. That's all good. Yeah, for those.
Yeah, so I'm just getting around this at the moment, just going to put an X here just for the moment so that it will do what it needs to do. And then you can, as you can see, this has got 57 slides in it, so I would then go through and send it for signature.
Sorry, Alee. When it is for you, you can just go straight to place my signature, and you can place the signature where you're supposed to sign, and that's it.
Yeah.
You didn't have to mark the signature place. So sometimes the little templates that you have, you might want to just,
Great. Now there is another question there, because we were talking before about the setting up like a monthly newsletter to the client, and because the options there with the engagement or proposal or ethical, is there any way of saving it with a new cover at all, Tiana? Do you know what I mean?
So it's as I mentioned earlier, Alee, so we are going to include that in our wish list and going to implement.
Fantastic. Thank you. So then you would I just would send it then, and would normally send the document off. This file is quite large, so I'm not going to send it. It will take too much time to do it. And once you have sent it though, it will, I'm just going to go back and back for a moment. It will then have a record in this digital authentication area to show you that you have actually, I'm just going to delete this one. You have actually sent it off. So you have a record there, and you can then, when you're finished with that, you can move this and archive it, and you could have your documents in archive. Okay, I'm just sort of getting rid of some of the questions here as we go. Thanks, Sue, for sharing the yes, I have different templates as well, for different messages as well when I send my documents off via the digital authentication. Okay, so let's talk. Are there any questions about how we can sort of these are different ways that we can utilise to communicate with our clients and actually have engagement at other times rather than just VAS or just payroll. So you can search the archive, but I have always found that I tend to search it by the document name, and I tend to find it more effective searching that way in the archive, in the digital authentication. I have typed in the customer name before as well. It just takes me a little longer to find things. It doesn't, yeah. All right. And this, can the archived documents be viewed at, yes, you can view the archived documents at any other later date. You just go into the archive and you just scroll through them. All right, so I've come out of the digital authentication area and come back into our Gov Reports. And as you know, we talked about before the bird's eye view here. This bird's eye view brings up this dashboard showing you what you've done, what you've lodged, depending on whatever widgets you've set here. Now, the other thing we want to do is looking at streamlining some of the ways we do and deal with our workflow. So I'm going to flick back to our PowerPoint for a moment, go past those screens that we've talked about a little bit before, sending and signing documents. And one of the things is looking at utilising things such as the Google Calendar and Outlook Calendar, setting up your notifications and reminders, using the Office Practice Manager to set up jobs, recurring jobs, schedule your work and delegate tasks, and using Gov Reports for generating your invoices. So, one of the things Gov Reports does is it integrates both with Google and Outlook calendars. And we do that by going to the My Practice, the calendar, and selecting Google or Outlook. Now we can just as easily, when we go into Gov Reports, also go into our settings, into our practice settings, and you'll also find that you can set up the calendar from within there. So there's two places that you can go to do that. So if I go back to my home and I choose my practice settings and I go to calendar, you'll see here that I can choose Google or Outlook to connect my Google Calendar. So I'm just waiting while it's thinking. You can see here also that when I have jobs set up in the practice, they'll actually also appear on my calendar. And we'll go and talk about that and see how you can organise your workflow by utilising both the calendar and the fact that you can use jobs in the system. So in here, if I say I want to use Google Calendar, if I tick this, it asks me, do I want to connect to a Google Calendar? And then it asks me to go in and sign in to my account. Now I'm not going to go and do that because otherwise it's going to muck up what I've got elsewhere. So you just follow those prompts to connect your Google Calendar. Good question, Sue, and I'm going to have a look at that in a moment. Which date shows on your calendar? Before I go and look at that, I want to just go over and just also show you that in the practice settings, you can also go through and make sure that you have any reminders that are set up here. So in here, you can have client reminders pop up. I don't have any at the moment. But if I go into my settings at the top here in my practice settings, you will find there is notification settings. So in here, when I utilise the Office Practice Manager system, then I can be notified when a job's created, who it's allocated to, when status changed, when comments are added. So I can set up what sort of notifications that I want to have in relation to the practice management and the setting up of jobs. Now, notifications and alerts come up when your digital authentication status happens, and you'll notice that they'll appear up here as little indications here. Interesting enough. It also will show you when things have been queued, and if you've got timesheets, you will also see that happening in here. When you also have an event or job or task that's added to the calendar and set for a reminder, then reminder is going to pop up in a pop-up window for you. So we're going to take a little look now at how we can utilise Office Practice Manager to help you do things more efficiently. And we'll come back to that question about the dates in Manager. So there are two distinct parts within Gov Reports. We have our compliance and lodgement area, but we also have our practice area. Now, if you have staff, you might set them up as authorised users so that you are able to delegate tasks to them. So the My Lodgements will show you the history, the saved reports. Many of you may already be familiar with this, where you can track everything. One of the greatest tools I absolutely love the activity summary statement summary, where you can now, without having to log into the portal, you can pull down the integrated client account so that you can run it from set dates as well. No, that's a different one. That's this one. The activity statement summary will show you a history of the activity statement fields and the lodgements per month or quarter, depending on how you do it, for a set period of time. It's usually based on a financial year. And so when you're doing your end-of-year GST reconciliations to make sure everything's been picked up properly and everything all tallies and all the rest of it, you can see it at a glance without having to go through every BAS lodgement and work out what you did, what you didn't do, and then work out if everything, someone's made some change somewhere along the line that you haven't picked up. That one I absolutely love, along with some of the other tools that are in there. I have used this in the last few weeks when I've been trying to fix someone's payroll that they made a big mess of, and it was absolutely wonderful. So now we have down here the My Practice area. So you can see here we have jobs, we have calendar, we have time billing. So in here we can have our timesheets. We can also have invoicing. So if we're doing invoicing, we can manage our timesheets. In the settings, when we go in here in our practice settings, you'll find that we have our billing settings. So in here, you can set up the rate per hour. In your invoice setting here, you can put in some conditions, etc., about what you want to do, how you want to add things, so you can customize that to your needs. So you have the ability to streamline the way that you process things from a billing perspective. The jobs area is the area that I'd like to talk about. So I'm just going to flick back to PowerPoint temporarily and just go through those last few slides, get rid of those to get to the area that I want to talk about. And that is the Office Practice Manager. You can see that it's broken down into My Jobs, Scheduled Jobs, My Tasks and Templates. Scheduled jobs are those jobs that you have already set up and are due to come up at a set date. The tasks are those within the jobs you can set up tasks like a checklist to be checked off. That way they're set up within the existing jobs, and as you complete them they are marked off. The templates are broken down into 4 areas: default task, custom task, job template and recurring. The default task templates are a set of templates that come automatically with the Practice Manager component. The custom ones are ones that you have designed yourself. You may have taken a default one and modified it in some way to save it as a custom one. You have a job template, which is a one-off job, as opposed to a recurring job template. There is a question here, Tiana, about does the invoicing integrate with QBO or Xero? I'm not 100% sure on that one. I'd have to leave that to Sandeep or Tiana to tell me on that one.
So at the moment, I mean, the invoicing section is not integrated with any of the accounting platform, which is in our wish list to implement. So hopefully we'll be implementing in the upcoming financial year.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sandeep. Sort of answers that one. All right. So you can see in the default task template, there's a number of templates that it comes with. And then let's take a look at actually creating a task template in Gov Reports. So down here, we can see the My Jobs. I'm just going to go to that calendar again for a moment because I'd like to have a look at this one. So January that came up. So I can answer that question and tick it off the box. So Field International Monthly IAS PAYG only. So if I look at my jobs in here, and I can change how many appear on the screen here. And I'm going to filter this for Field International. And I'm looking and I'm going to change it, have a different screen so I can look at two screens at once. Look at my calendar, because I tend to just look at my job screen more than anything. So 11th, the first would be the deadline date. So Sue, that's the deadline date that shows in the calendar. All right. So we talked about those already, templates we talked about. So when we want to create our own task template, we can either clone an existing template or we can create a new one. Either way, once you've done that, they are going to appear in the task template area, the custom task template area. So if I go to clone a template, I'm going to go in here to my job templates and I'm going to go to a default task template in here and I'm going to choose one. And can you see here, I can click on clone. I can then give that template a name. And I can share it to anyone who has access to it, to the my Gov Reports file. So you can see here that I've now cloned it. Now what that does, it brings all the tasks that have already been set up under the default, but with the different task template name. And now you'll see if I go to my custom task template, you'll now see the cloned template here. Now I can go into this template and I can edit it. I can go through and delete things that I don't think I want to have, or I can actually go in and type things into different sections of the checklist to actually add more things into it. I would then, when I'm finished, I can then also go through and actually attach it to a specific job, or I can also create a new job from the start. So if I go to a job template here, so the first stage for you is to create your task. The second one is to create the job. So if I'm doing a one-off job, then I'm going to use the job template and I'm going to create this new template and I'm going to call it one-off job, whatever it might be. I'm going to leave it as it is. In here, if I'm using the billing, I would use this section here. And then I'm going to go save. And in here, I can edit it and select the custom task that I created before and copy that to bring in my checklist. Once it's done that, I click Save. And now if I look in the tasks, you'll see all the tasks that are there. And as you go through, they can be marked off as complete. And now I can actually attach that to the specific client that I want it for. On my main screen, I will have gone through and normally set up my schedule date and deadline date, etc. And then once that's done, I'll find that in my schedule job, and for some reason my screen has frozen for a moment, then go, try it again. In here, my schedule jobs will be all those jobs that I have created. And I'm just trying to find my jobs here. Did I set up it properly? I've missed something. There it is. So it's My Girl Designs. There's my edit here. There's the scheduled date, and it should appear in here, but it's not appearing for some reason, which is unusual. But it's appearing in my jobs, that's for sure. If I have recurring jobs, my recurring jobs will appear here in my schedule, so I can change the schedule as well. So I'm just going to flick back to the PowerPoint because they're getting close on time and there's a lot to cover. So we just created that task template first and I cloned it, or I could have gone through and created one brand new from scratch and done that. So you may have your, if you do this, you've got your processes and your procedures, as this is going to help follow that structure to help you with a growing practice, because you want those processes and procedures in place and that structure in place so that everyone follows the same sort of processes. It's consistent in the way things are done. You can edit them and then you create your job templates and your recurring job templates. Unfortunately, once you create a single job template, you cannot transform it into a recurring job template. You need to create a recurring job template itself if you want it to be recurring. So as you can see, it's very similar to the job template. The only difference is we say that it's recurring and we set up the frequency. And once again, we will attach it to the client and then you will find it with the attach at the bottom, and you will find then it should appear in your schedule. Not sure why it's not appearing in my schedule, but it's not for the moment.
Based on the date, the schedule date.
Oh, today's the 28th, yes. All right, so the other thing that you'll find also is that you have a weekly summary report that comes out each Sunday, which shows the report of the lodgements, the status, completed jobs, upcoming jobs, and that can be sent to your email address. You have that option to opt out of that report, and you can do that by going to the settings to My Account, and by default the notification setting is turned on, and you could turn it off if that was the case. Now let's talk, now that we've learned that we can set up our jobs and our templates and our tasks to help streamline the way that we do things, how do we control that workflow? Well, with any of the jobs, obviously we can do the scheduling of the dates. We have a scheduled date where it could commence, and we can have deadline dates. We can also prioritise it, and we can allocate it to team members that have a GovReports license. So going back in here, if I take a look at my jobs, which I have here, if I click on any of my jobs and I go to the edit screen, you'll see here that when I set it up, I can set it up for a duration. So if I want to start at a certain time, I can set my priority to high, medium and low, so I can control what's high, medium and low in my flow. If I have another team member, down here I can assign that to that team member so I can help, this way I can monitor who's doing what, and that way I can keep control on what is happening within my practice. I can also, with the recurring, also you can see here the frequency and how it ends and ends by or ends after, or no end date that you can set up as well to help with the scheduling. And so as you saw when we went into the My Practice area, you could see with in the bird's eye view and things like that, we could see different bits and pieces in the lodgements area. But when we went to the My Practice area and we went to the calendar, we could see the workflow updated with the jobs and when their deadline is. And you can see the ones in red, you can see the ones in green. I was going to say the ones in red were overdue because it tends to be the case. It certainly does show in your jobs, in your list of jobs here. If they're overdue, you will see the deadline date in red. If they're not yet due, they'll be here. But you'll also see that in here you have the different priorities as well. So you can see by utilising the calendar and utilising the jobs, you can control that workflow, you can assign it to people, you can keep on top of things as your business grows by having those tasks and jobs in place to help you as the business grows. Because one of the things you want to do is have those things in place, because once the business grows, you don't always get that time to actually sit down. Of course, now the cat wants to come in, I'm so sorry. You don't always get that time to sit down and plan everything. So if you have that opportunity to sit down and have a good planning session to set out the processes you want, the structures you want, how you want to design it, using the practice manager, that is the best way to get everything in place. So as your business grows, you're able to cope with that as well. Now, let me just have a look at any questions for tasks when not in the office. I'm not aware of GovReports having an app for the tasks and time when you're not in the office. Tiana, Sandeep?
We don't have that on the wish list at the moment, Alison, so definitely we'll consider that and we'll add it onto the list and see how if other people are also, other users are also requesting the same, we might escalate the request to to our to-do.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, the question that Alison's also asked is, can it be a completed job as archived, or etc. So, yes, you can see here the status. So there are a number of statuses. You have open statuses, you have comply, you have process, you have finalised. So there's different statuses. Now, if I want to look for only those items that have been finalised, then I can drop this down here in my search and search, and then only those will. I have a tendency in mine to have mine set to open so that I can see all the jobs that are currently open. And then as you go through and you complete your tasks and you get to the different stages, you edit this screen here, or you can edit it from the main screen to change it to something like, say you've sent it off for signature, for authorization. You can select that there. So that's that one. Can you customize the status list? Yes, you can. It's in the settings. I haven't actually sat down and gone through mine 100% yet, but I know the job status settings are here, and so you can go through and remove and add what you want in here, and then that will flow through into the practice manager. So going back to what we've been talking about today, we looked at ways today how we could optimize our workflow through Practice Manager and how we can delegate jobs and tasks and reorganize those priorities so that as the practice grows, we're set up for success. We looked at how we can communicate changes using, and also changes in regulation and adding bits and pieces by using the letters or the digital authentication area. And we looked at how we could set up our Office Practice Manager to help us do these sorts of things, and also setting up things from the start, going through those settings and making sure that we customize it how we want it to be so that we're providing for that future growth. And that way, when that future growth comes, we put our plans in place and we are growing with it. So hopefully that has provided you with a little bit more information on how you can utilise GovReports to put in some best practices for a growing practice. And that's me done. Are there any further questions? So,
okay, it seems like we have covered all the questions as we go along. If you have more questions or want to know more about what Alee has mentioned in the webinar today, please don't hesitate to reach out to us after this webinar, either by email or telephone us, and however it is easier for you, and let us know. We'll attend to that as soon as we can. Yeah. Thanks,
all
Rick.
right.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, Rick and Sue, for your feedback. Hopefully it wasn't too daunting for you, but it's always, it seems daunting at the start, but once you get into it, it's quite, you sort of come up with lots of things, and it really has been a change in my practice. I don't know that I could have been able to manage as well and manage my team as well if I hadn't put these things in place to begin with.
So we do have previous webinars that was it was specifically on jobs and job templates and work task templates and so forth. So you might want to visit our website, the govreports.com.au/webinar, and you'll be able to find it there. But if you're not too sure, just reach out to us on the telephone or email, and we'll just redirect you to that specific one. Thanks, Irene.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of the day, and bye for now.